SATSANG 2. Shantinilaya Lifehouse, Spain, July 31, 2020. Well, so we are together for an hour, and I take this opportunity to remind you that at 4:30 we will have a fame channeling, and afterwards, surprise, there will be a second channeling, but I don't know from whom again. I don't know from whom yet. So we are listening to questions or testimonies, as I said, so not the testimonies of a gate, of what you are going through, but, so when I speak of testimonies, this time, it is rather in a sense of what I would call before, after. That is to say, there has been a changeover, you've lived it for many here. Elisa interrupts. Yes, I was saying that we will continue with the questions, but if you have testimonies, not so much in the description of energies, of vibrations, but more on your positioning, I would say, between a before and an after, if you have lived it. I know that there are many who have lived it here. So, I think we first have some questions in Spanish, right? Alright. Okay. Elisa. So it's a game that is full of traps, when the moment of the event arrives, and you have to differentiate between the ones of the light and the cons. How do you do it? It's very simple. In one case you are enjoying peace, in the other case you will be in tension, in questioning, like the question. When you are no longer questioning, and you are in real peace, there is not even a question to be asked. And by the way, there are many brothers and sisters. I recently posted a testimony from a friend who had been throwing herself into the numbers for a year because she had come to Tarifa, into numbers, but it could have been into anything, numbers, but it's the numbers, to realize that it's Shantik. It's not a condemnation, it's not a question of saying it's right or wrong, precisely, today everything is a pretext, even falsehood, to make you live the truth. It is magic. And I must say that the more you suffer, the worse you are, you have more and more chance to live the truth, because very quickly you will realize, even without words, even without intellectual understanding, that such and such a thing puts you in tension, in claim, from your point of view, and you see that it makes you suffer. So it's an apprenticeship that allows you to let go of all the techniques. I continue to speak and to train on crystals because, beyond the real care, crystals act on the consciousness. That is why I continue to talk about it. So we keep people busy by telling them what it is used for healing, we teach them to make diagnoses, and then, when you put the crystals on, you realize that people will, regardless of any healing, change their point of view and, as we were saying earlier, wake up. So you see. Whereas there are other techniques, on the contrary, that will take you into contradiction, into tension. It's the same for what we call the channelings. There are people who channel, there are more and more people who receive information, but you do not feel good with that, because you feel that you are not free. As long as you have not understood, lived, that there is no one, you can be awakened, indeed, but you are not free. Freedom is to see clearly that all this is a game, as I say, but when you are lucid, it is no longer a game, as I say, a game of fools, it is a game of free will, but your point of view changes, and you are no longer submissive, because you let yourself go through rather than stop, whatever tool you use. So asking this kind of question is quite justified for the person, or for the person who lives the energies, who perceives them, who feels them, but there is still fear, the fear of making a mistake. But realize that today, this fear of making a mistake, or the very questioning about what we are living, will bring you back to the truth very quickly. It is an apprenticeship. That is why I have always said that dreamers must be allowed to dream, because their dream will inevitably end in a nightmare that will free them from all these concepts, from all notions of time and space. But let everyone take the appearance of the path they want, even if you live that there's no path. That's part of freedom and play. As Ayoun has been saying for more than 3 years now, there are enough atom-emitting particles, white light, that many of you see when you lie down, or in nature, for this white light to act. Do you trust what you believe? Do you trust the character you play? Or do you trust the truth that is unknown to you and to what you are promised anyway, whatever the apparent errors, and whatever the crossroads? There is nothing to judge, and especially not to judge yourself. And if today, even without feeling the energies, you go against the truth, in good faith, in all lucidity of consciousness and not of who you are, the truth will catch up with you, in all possible ways. In fact, you are not free, as long as you believe that you can direct, control life. Of course, you have to direct, control, in relation to family obligations, professional and other obligations, but do not mix the stage with truth. Elisa. I think that's where we don't know too much, this is where there is a hiatus, apparently not yet fully assimilated. Elisa, we're mixing things up a bit. Absolute truth is something that can be lived or not, but the more you let go of all pretensions of the person or the conscience, the more free you are. But don't confuse this with your everyday activities. But these everyday activities, from the moment you are awake, you are going to assume them, whatever they are. That is what wakility is all about. It is not about taking refuge on top of a mountain, or excluding yourself completely from society. It is about living on its periphery, so that there are as few gears as possible that trap you. Remember, you will never be free as a person. It is when there is no one that you are free. But when I say that, you're evidently there, you can't be anywhere else, that's what you accept. It's to stop dreaming, to stop projecting, to stop thinking about karma, whatever it is, that concerns that person. In fact, it is not the person who is liberated, as they say, it is you who are liberated from the person. Natalie, speak slowly so that she can translate in real time. Sister. Just, for example, can you give examples? Rather, to make it concrete. Then we will take the example of those who feel the energies, because there are many of you here, almost all of you, feeling. When there is a sensation, a perception, or a pain, or a work that you do, as we have done for years with the Yoga of Unity or with Trinitarian osteopathy, you focus your attention and your consciousness on it, the consciousness is hooked, normally, and when you are free, you see it, when you are free, you see it, you feel it. Your consciousness is no longer driven by perception. Remember, a consciousness is absence of perception. That is the great silence. So I do not deny what I am living, of course, since I have spent years talking about the stars, the doors, the body of light, and explaining the links and bridges between the different things. Simply, I am no longer fooled by it, I don't freeze it, I don't refuse it, I have absorbed it. That is why I am no longer talking about this peace, this immutability, which no longer needs a referential of the heart, the double terrace, and all that, because it is something that will speak directly to the consciousness and no longer needs the relay of perception, sensation and discrimination between what is good and what is bad. It is lived experience, it is not concepts. I am quite lucid that they are entities, I see them, but they have no more reality than I have, they are inscribed in the game. What you need to let go of is not the person is what it is there, and it is precisely in this person that it is lived that there is no one. To do this, you have to let yourself go. It is indeed diametrically opposed for the elders to what we did at the time, when we carried the consciousness, for example, on the stars, on the gates, and there was a whole energetic and vibratory work to activate the gates. But we don't need it anymore. It is in that sense that I am telling you to forget all this knowledge. We have it for some of us because we live it. You do not need it anymore either. It is done alone, naturally, and without you. In other words, as long as you believe you are directing energy, your life for your consciousness, you are not free. You can't understand that. Understanding is when you live it, not before. But the problem is that consciousness always needs to understand, and when you perceive the energies, you know very well that there are energies that are good and others that are not good. Think that there is an astral light, that there is a vibratory light, but that there is also the non-light, which is not the shadow, which is the famous nothingness of the absolute, nothingness, born before, that is what it means. When we are liberated and lucid, we embrace everything, even Yaldabaoth, he is part of cinema. Some of you have told me that they were approached by the archons and everything. What's the big deal? This system, which is called creation, only holds, at least in the enclosed system we are in, only by fear. Fear of dying, which implies the search for meaning in life, and understanding and safeguards that we put on all levels, and the first of the safeguards is good and evil. I'm well aware that good and evil are at work in this theater scene. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, I'm just saying that it's something you have to go through, because as long as you're busy trying to figure out whether it's right or wrong, like the question, you're not available. Accepting what is, unconditionally and without submission, that is the truth, understanding that you cannot change anything, at that moment, everything will change. It is one, in French we say surrender, it is also what we call resilience. It is the moment when you are so much under tension, physical, energetic, in your consciousness, that there is a moment when you know very well that you have no choice but to let go, even if you do not want to let go. Elisa. Anyway, I had a good illustration with that. I thought, anyway this question it is asked, you think it will have time to see if it is the light or not, if there is a meteorite falling on you. Well, you accept it and then that's all, you are not going to distinguish if it is the light, if it is not the light. Elisa. Sister's question, if we get into absolute chaos, there won't be anything to distinguish, interrupting sister and JLA. Well, there won't be any more white paradise promised to us, sister. That's right, the service that chaos will render. I believe I told you about the Kelvin manuscript yesterday, which is the survivor's description of the Nibiru crossing. It's pretty much the description you have in the Apocalypse of St. John. But this time, as the ship of the Archons that had folded the solar system in time, was sent back from the solar system in August 2009, there will be no recreation, as there will be no creation, end of the worlds, and the return to life. It is simply the habit of consciousness, of having a form, of having stories, and it is not a play on words when they say, Biggie said it long before me, that not everything that happens is true. All these words of divine indifference, there is no one, being free of the person, are not puns. It is an attempt at transmission so that you can resonate and find yourself, that's all. At some point when you are free, and sufficiently established in freedom, you can no longer be affected. I've said it, I'll say it again. You have nothing else to do, and to be, or not to be, the hardest thing is to accept that there's nothing to do, and that there's nothing to do. Be natural, be simple, and that's it. It is no longer time to tell stories, scenarios, to talk about rude races that will take you into a hypothetical future and that will prevent you from being in the present. If you are available for life, you will become life and no longer your life. The character he is there until the last moment, until the last breath, but you can only see this fluidity in you, fluidity of emotions, fluidity of thoughts. You know very well that thoughts are not born from you and that, depending on your state, you capture something that is already there. For those who see the mental aura, which is harder to see than the etheric or astral aura, you can see very well the thought forms, like species of growths that are at the periphery of the mental aura, and when someone starts to think, you can see that there's a thought coming, and it is clinging to the mental aura. But it is not even you who is thinking, the thoughts appear because they are already there. This is the principle of what we call morphogenetic fields. When someone invents something on Earth, as if by chance, the same discovery is made in different places. You may be familiar with the experience of monkeys on an island in the Pacific. It was Rupert Sheldrake who brought this to light over 20 years ago. You take the monkey and you show him that if he puts the potato he found in the seawater, in the sun, it's much better than a raw potato. Then the information travels to the island. All the monkeys after a while do the same thing, and at the same time, in many places on the planet, the monkeys that haven't seen, the monkeys isolated on their islands, have the same behavior. Information, it is accessible in the ether, space, everything is accessible in space and the ether. This is what you live when you are in the immutability. Like this fool who dances, he is the movement, but he is in the center, he does not move. In Taoism, this is very well known. What is the Tao, which is called the principle in the way, is the hub of the wheel that does not turn, but allows the wheel to turn. It is the support of life, the support of dreams, the support of creation, of God that we invented, who was nothing but the devil. These mechanisms, moreover, we can understand them. Look at Nassim Haramein, he came to the same conclusions. Look at Dr. Eben Alexander, which you can easily find on YouTube, in all languages, pure neuroscientist who, on the verge of coma, where bacteria ate away his entire neocortex, he had no more gray matter, and that's the truth, since we have the evidence, the CT scan, and when he came back, since he was condemned, he had no brain left, reconstructed his brain back to the way it was a week before he was eaten. It's not a miracle, it's the morphogenetic fields. He lived the absolute, his brain was destroyed. So he, who was a materialistic reductionist, consciousness was the brain. There is no more brain, he comes back, he reconstructs his brain, he remembers all that he lived since he crossed all the astral bodies, he met his parents since he did not know them, since he was adopted, who told him that he had a sister, he did not even know that he had a sister, they gave him the name and the surname. Afterwards he kept going up, or down, since there is no movement, and at some point there is no more form, no more light, no more illumination. The anguish of emptiness, the anguish of nothingness, he couldn't help but let go, he didn't control anything, and there it was bliss, total bliss. He came back, his brain was reconstituted, he found his sister and his real surname, and his brain is normal. He's still operating. Imagine, a brain that takes so many years. In embryology, it takes 9 months, and then the brain, it is not mature when one is born, it has to establish connections, the brain is constituted, it takes 14 years, 15 years, the time for the mental body to be constituted, and it reconstituted itself in 1 week. This is the example of the monkeys. That's the good news, what I called the pandemic 2 years ago, you've all been infected. even if you are in total opposition to what I am saying. I don't care at all, because the contamination is real. Biddy said when she was alive, my words cannot fail. At the time, nobody understood. I tell you, the gay pandemic cannot fail because you are contaminated. And you see what is happening on the stage of the simulacrum now. They use the same words, pandemic, and they put a mask on you. The good news is also a virus, astral. When you are at time zero, if only because I tell you about it, even if you say, this is bullshit, you heard it, it's too late. It's like when you watch TV, even if you say, well, you know it's TV, the images have entered you, it's too late. It's called predictive programming. That's exactly what I did with Agape, and you've been doing it for several months. All you have to do is follow Agape sessions. We've multiplied the information, the good news, and it's over. When you leave this body, and maybe you will meet, but they'd say there's no end and it lasts 10 or 20 years, you will die one day, and when you die, what will happen? Inevitably you will be forced to remember that all beings have light. Supposedly, you are not going to be stopped. You are going to go straight into the sun, but you are not going to stop. You are going to find yourself on the other side in the absolute. It is as simple as that. All the goals of religion, all the goals of spirituality, through thoughts, concepts and vibrations, is to prevent you from living the truth. That's why Bernard of Montreal was so virulent on all those people who submitted themselves to masters or an outside authority. Freedom suffers no authority. What is called the integral sovereign in the Windmakers, for those who know, the integral sovereign, which was developed by those who are called the Windmakers, the Windmakers. Yes. Sister. I just wanted to say, I think I was really well contaminated, because I got all the information from Agape before I heard you, before I got to know you, and I hear people say, yes, we are going to make Agape, we are going to make Agape. So wait, Elisa translates. Then repeat, but sentence by sentence. Sister. All the information given by Jean-Luc, I lived it without having the explanations, and the word Agape was in my head continuously, 3 months before I came across it. And when I listened to the cantus, it was a total obviousness on absolutely everything, and I had the explanations of everything I had lived through. But I'd been through it before. Sister. For me it was over, from then on it was over. That's it, I had everything that my mind was telling me, I didn't believe in it anymore, all the lies I didn't believe in anymore, I let it go. I had Satan in me, so the really negative thing, and the laughter, he laughed. And when afterwards I heard, we're all going to laugh, I took it badly at the moment, I lay down, I put myself in the heart, the little voice told me, get over there, we're here, don't worry, I closed my eyes, I was there, and everything went like that this year. There is a moment when you can only say yes, as I was saying, anyway, you have no choice. Sister. But yes. And then it's me. I knew, everything is me, there was total evidence, the aircon, all of it was me, we were part of the same video game, and then came the big laugh. Sister. Now I laugh all the time, I can laugh at night. Last night, I had a hard time holding back, but without thinking, I laugh sometimes, but it's for nothing, I laugh alone. That's what I'm saying. Laughing. Others. Thank you. And testimonials like this, there are thousands, millions of them. Of course, as our sister says, many people who lived the stars and all that, without knowing what it was, when they had it, they had to accept that it was the truth. And even what I am telling you, if you are in opposition to what I am saying, I don't care, it doesn't touch me, etc., you are going to explode in the truth anyway. So, I don't have to worry about anything. Besides, since there's nobody around. That's the Agape pandemic. I explained it 2.5 years before the sham took over, with a pandemic of the so-called COVID, and the masks they put on us, which I have to wear too if I don't want to pick up a fine. But I'm not fooled by the charade. Just because I'm wearing a mask doesn't mean I'm submitting to it. Or it's not because I'm not going to wear one that I'm in that truth. Neither one nor the other. It's what is. It's the complete reversal of the Agape pandemic, it's the pandemic of fear. Well, when you get tired of being afraid, you'll laugh. It would have been even quicker, I think, if the real virus had killed everyone. Then there would have been even more fear, there would have been even more deaths, and the awakening would have been even quicker. But these idiots, they created a virus that they thought could kill a lot of people, but not only did it take the place of the flu virus, because it was more efficient, and it's over, there are the same number of deaths as every year, even by cheating. It goes very far. I put in a drawing yesterday of a skydiver who jumps in the air and forgot his parachute. Cause of death, carried. That's what they do. Lefts. But of course, people die. As Biggie said, when his wife died, he danced around her corpse. But you say that to a normal person, in inverted commas, he'll think you're irresponsible and crazy. But it doesn't matter, as soon as he lives it, he'll understand. I don't have to convince anyone, absolutely no one, you don't have to convince anyone. At first, it was not the adhesion to Jean-Luc or to Audra's dimensions, but the adhesion to a common living experience. That's what they never understood, those who don't live it. We don't recognize ourselves through a movement or a sect, we recognize ourselves through a common lived experience. But for those who don't live it, we are crazy. Laughter. Sister, what time is it? Elisa, now I've lost track, and that's what's happening today, because everybody knows that things are happening. There is a legitimate fear, when we see them ask terrorized when they see a non-masked. It's a dystopia, as they say, total dystopia. There's no logic, no reason, but it's just the way it is. It's the opposite of the sacred, it's the simulacrum. We put on the body of light, and the others put on the yellow vests. Simulacrum versus sacred. These are the two sides of the same coin, which is called the symbol or the diabolical, when we play the game of division, but there's no more symbol than diabolical, there is truth, period. And in the truth, nothing is excluded, everything is included. So you can play as much as you want, find all the arguments you want, feel all the sensations you want. I don't have to convince anybody, and I would even say that you have a better chance of finding yourself if you place yourself in opposition to me, because you're going to burn yourself totally, you're going to consume yourself in a cut, because you don't know it, because you don't know this intolerant fire. But that's what love is, it's a devouring fire. And who devours what first? This body. That is the final apotheosis, that is the final banquet. What OMA was talking about yesterday is now visible. Sister, 5 minutes left. Elisa, what? Sister, there are 7, 8 minutes left. 5 minutes left, so this will be the last question. Go ahead, Isabel. Elisa, yesterday in Bibi's channeling, one of the fears that I am aware that I still have is that the fear is more restrained in a way, which brings me back to being constantly searching and trying to understand everything, because I am afraid, and in this search, and maybe that takes me to the beginning of my programs. And yesterday I found a guide yesterday in the channeling, I found a guide, and I am aware of this programming, that every word he was saying, that the vibration of every word was permeating every word of Biggie. I am aware that there was nothing that could do in this personality, that could do to this character, because even the character is already contaminated. But as soon as the programming is seen, as you say, what happens? You laugh. Laughs. And when you laugh, you use certain facial muscles, the zygomatic ones, and you release the pressure, and then you laugh at yourself. But we've all been through this, we've all kind of lingered on this. Wow, that's good, that's not good, that's the good, oh, that's the bad. Yes, that's part of the game. It creates resistance, but it also creates openness, because as soon as there's resistance, and the stronger it is, with the same intensity you're going to burn with love, aren't you? Elisa, you accept the no, there is nothing to be done. So, maybe we will stop now, because we have things to do. I remind you, for the listeners too, that we have a live broadcast at 4:30 with free aim, and in the second part, that is to say around 6, 8 or 7, 9 o'clock, surprise. I don't know more, really. I'll see you then. By Jean-Luc Ayoun. Less Transformations. English Revised Translation, LMF.